And welcome everybody to the 131st episode of the Fact Is Podcast. We're your hosts, Nate Moses.
And I'm Stu Mowbray.
And welcome everyone. Appreciate you all being here. So we are switching it up just a little bit. So what we're actually going to be doing is, don't forget on the TV, it's different, remember? Where is it on the screen? It's completely fine. Oh, wait, maybe it's not actually. Interesting. Gonna have to configure it real quick. All right. Sorry about that. A couple technical difficulties. Yeah, we'll just take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, go. All right, sorry about that. Quick technical difficulty. But we're good, up and running now. So welcome everybody. Like I said, we're trying a couple different things tonight. Different camera angle. Not using the whiteboard tonight. TikTok we're live on right now. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, everywhere. So thank you all so much for being here. You know, we really appreciate it. And I imagine at some point in this episode, you are probably going to hear some puppers go off and start barking, but just forgive us for that. But yeah, glad to be here. Stu, how you feeling today?
Feeling good, man.
And I'm glad to have you. Ryan is not here tonight, just so everybody obviously knows. He is going to, again with the birth of his new child here recently, and spending time with the family, going to some local events, things like that. So fun times there. Somebody said the funniest joke on TikTok. Somebody just said they could land a 747 on my head. It's not even that big of a head, but I guess it's because of the camera angle, maybe because my hairline, it looks weird, but I like that. That was funny. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted there. That was so funny. Oh, man. But yeah, anyways, so like I said, welcome everybody, 131st episode. Great night, a lot of things that we got going on throughout the world, obviously throughout this country as well. So a lot of things we got to touch up on. But yeah, so like I said, trying a couple new things. No whiteboard tonight. It's kind of hard to see. What we're doing is we're getting some different camera angles worked in there, seeing how those work out. So please just give us some feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, and we'll continue to improve every single day for you all, because ultimately this podcast is for you guys. We're here to present information for you, so we can show you things that the mainstream will not. And that is what we are here for. So
dun dun dun.
Good stuff. Stu, anything else you want to say before we start jumping right into this episode?
No, sir.
No, sir. All right. Fantastic. Well, we're going to jump straight in with our very first topic, which is going to be part of what the title is about tonight, which is the U.S. Biden will send cluster bombs to Ukraine, and what to know about this controversial weapon. So let's talk about that. U.S. President Joe Biden. Biden's decision last week to provide Ukrainian troops with a controversial weapon known as a cluster bomb ignited swift condemnation from NATO allies and even fellow Democrats. Biden is in attendance this week at the NATO summit in Lithuania, just days after the Pentagon announced Friday that it was supplying 155 millimeter artillery shells containing the cluster munitions to Kyiv as part of its next $800 million weapons package. Woo! More money to Ukraine. Many NATO nations are party to a treaty prohibiting the use of these bombs, which can detonate much later and inadvertently kill civilians. There are some, there are some pictures on there, Stu, if you want to show everybody kind of like what the cluster bomb looks like. For anybody who is on our Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, you'll be able to see that. Those on TikTok, I apologize, you won't get as good of a view of this. I can show you real quick as we're going through all of this, kind of like the idea of what a cluster bomb looks like, the formation of it, the canister opening up and releasing the submunitions. So let me start reading through the rest of this article as we're going here. So cluster bombs or cluster munitions are artillery shells or bombs that disperse smaller weapons known as bomblets. The weapon can be dropped from an aircraft or fired from the ground. More than 100 countries, including many NATO allies, have banned international use of the weapons by signing the 2010 Convention on Cluster Munitions. Russian and Ukraine forces both have cluster munitions in their arsenal and have used these weapons since the war began in February 2022 following Russian President Vladimir Putin's unprovoked invasion. So, interesting thoughts here. Stu, I kind of want to hear what your thoughts are on the cluster bombs. I have my own kind of take on it if you want me to go first, but, I'll do whatever you'd like. So what do you think?
Oh, man.
It's a tough one.
Short answer is I am not for sending cluster bombs to Ukraine.
I mean, I'm not for putting any more money over in Ukraine, but yeah.
That too. But from what I understand, like this article said, there's like a treaty between some countries. I think they're banned in a lot of countries.
Right.
And then I'm pretty sure there was a video of the press secretary commenting on, this was like a year ago or something, commenting on the cluster bomb, saying that using them is a war crime.
Right.
So if they want to, take the logic all the way to its conclusion, then
right,
they shouldn't be sending these over
they shouldn't
there.
be sending them. I agree. So interesting take there. So here's my kind of take on this. I understand why they're sending them, but I also disagree with the fact that they're sending them, right? So according to what we just talked about there, a lot of countries have signed a treaty basically saying no more cluster bombs. The problem with this war is that even the Geneva Convention isn't being held up. Russia destroyed Ukraine's dam, which we have talked about avoiding infrastructure according to the Geneva Convention, right? Russia has already broken the rules, so I can understand why we're sending cluster bombs saying who cares about rules anymore kind of deal, right? Now, doesn't make it right, and I don't think we should be sending it. Heck, I don't think we should be sending any more money over to Ukraine. We've sent billions of dollars and billions with a B of dollars of American tax-paying money over there. NATO hasn't stepped up as a whole, whereas I feel like America has put a lot of it on our back. NATO, there have been countries that have been helping out, sending over fighter jets, things of that nature. I think it was Germany and Finland, I want to say was the other one. I can't remember exactly, so don't quote me on that. But that is a lot of money going towards Ukraine, and I'm all for supporting Ukraine and their independence. But again, how much more money are we going to continue to send? It's just kind of wild to me.
We've sent more money than any other country combined.
Yep.
If you add up all the other countries that have sent money, we've sent way more money.
And that's why it's frustrating for me when we have such a powerful thing out there like NATO. We have a very powerful structure of countries that are coming together and formed a union or an authoritarian figure that is supposed to be stepping up to help Ukraine. And even right now, during the NATO convention, they have the opportunity to sign Ukraine into NATO. Now, I understand that there's some controversy in that, right? Because if they do get signed into NATO, then officially NATO would declare war against Russia with their invasion.
We'd automatically already be in war.
Right, we'd automatically be in war. Now, some of the theories that I've put together with the recent coup that has happened in Russia, he's losing faith in his people. Obviously, or his people are losing faith in Putin, right? They're losing faith in him. With that and the combination of the might of NATO, I feel like Putin would have no other choice because it would come out to one of two things, either World War III or he would pull out of Ukraine because they have now joined NATO and they have the financial backing, they have the arms backing, they have everything they need to kind of push Russia back out of their country. So that's a potential, but at the same time, we could just go into all-out war and it'd be World War III. So I don't know where the balance is, clearly, but we need to figure something out to be able to find peace talks within these two countries.
Yeah, I would hold off on that because, one, I definitely don't want American soldiers being sent over to Ukraine.
Yeah, we don't
And
want
that,
American
that
soldiers
would probably
there.
happen day one. And American lives, there's a chance of American lives being lost.
Right.
Which is something I don't want. But yeah, if that happened, it's hard to imagine what China or North Korea, because there's a lot going on over on that Pacific side.
Right.
So it's hard to know what they would do.
Yeah.
If we responded in that way.
Yeah. A couple comments that I see here on TikTok. Got one that says it's not dollars, it's aid. Yes, it is aid, but at the same time, the aid comes from dollars. It does cost with the supplies, the food, the supply chain, being able to get it all over there. I mean, all of that costs money. It's not like it's just, that. So I see what you're saying, but I also disagree. We are not sure that Russia damaged the dam. That is true. We don't have 100% certainty. But we do know that, and it could be that Ukraine did that to find to push a narrative that Russia is doing worse than what the Geneva Convention is even saying, right? So that is a possibility as well. We do not have 100% confirmation, just like we don't know who blew up Nord Stream, right? So not 100%. And then so it will benefit Ukraine's offensive. Yes, so the cluster bombs will clearly benefit Ukraine's offensive and their counteroffensive. But again, when it's there have been treaties signed by hundreds of countries saying do not use cluster bombs in war. Technically, we should abide by that. Cluster bombs can easily hurt civilians who have nothing to do with war, right? Civilians are not the ones who want war. It is the politicians that want the wars. They're the ones that ultimately send people to live or die because of what they want. So interesting thoughts there, though. So we do know who blew up Nord Stream. Funny. Technically we don't, but yeah. And it's corporations that want it. That's another good comment on TikTok as well. So corporations do enjoy war. It's interesting. You've seen, we were just talking about this a little bit earlier, but Boris Johnson over there in Britain, Prime Minister of Britain, he pushed Ukraine away from negotiation talks. If you all haven't seen OMG, the O'Keefe Media Group, recently just dropped something about BlackRock, a BlackRock employee who actually talked about how they do enjoy war and how it benefits them. So that's an interesting take as well. So a couple things to keep in mind there. So interesting thoughts there. But so that's kind of where it stands with the cluster bombs. I don't know where else to go with that. It's either we use them or we don't. And right now it looks like that we are sending them and that it will be part of Ukraine's offensive.
Yeah, I guess my whole view on all of this Ukraine and Russia stuff now is, we've had Nord Stream blown up. We've had the dam blown up.
Yep.
And there's not confirmation on any of those. But the way I see it is all these countries, even including NATO, Ukraine, and Russia, there needs to be some sort of peace talks.
Right.
Somebody needs, and I know China, probably months ago, they mentioned something about peace talks.
Right.
But eventually, we're going to have to go to the table and figure this thing out instead of through military and violence and people dying.
Right. It's got to come through conversation. You know what I mean? And that's where it's got to it's got to be successful through conversation and discourse. I mean, honestly, when the majority of the world looks at this, most people are saying Putin's in the wrong, right? Putin told Ukraine he was going to stay out of it anyways as long as Ukraine stayed out of NATO. Well, he lied. He invaded anyways. He did it because he wants more power. He wants more territory. So trying to at least contain, communism or Putin, is like the main goal I think we can do at this point.
Yes, I get that take. Or he felt like his back was up against the wall and he had no choice because NATO was on his doorstep.
I mean, yeah, that's a potential too. But I mean, if him and Zelensky kept a truce that, hey, you stay out of NATO, I won't invade.
Yeah, if there was a truce, for sure he should have respected
He should have
that.
just respected it, but I think he broke it, and I believe that's where it's at. But it could be true too that Zelensky was going to go sign with NATO anyways.
Yeah,
go ahead.
But why doesn't Zelensky get on there, even Biden, get on the television and say, let's sit down and let's have negotiations for peace?
Because they don't want peace. Peace doesn't help. And well, here you go. So 2 comments actually looking at this. So corporations benefit from war, illness, big pharma especially, right? That's something that Abel said. Abel, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here. A couple things I've seen on TikTok. It further pushes the idea of right and wrong. West can't use moral authority at this point. Interesting thought there. So, I really like Abel's comment here because we have to remember how big corporations play into all of this. Especially after this BlackRock video. I mean, we can't ignore that. This BlackRock video that just dropped, for anybody who hasn't seen the OMG video, the O'Keefe Media Group video that dropped with BlackRock, with the BlackRock employee, I forget his Sergey something, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the employee's name, but they talked heavily about how corporations, I mean, he literally said it's easy to buy a politician. You got 10 grand, you can buy a politician. It's insane how easily people get bought out. And then he even said, hey, if you have $500,000, are you going to say no? Well, of course most people aren't going to say no to $500,000. People need that money. And people are greedy. So as long as they get what they want in the short term, they don't care about the long term of the overarching, goodness or peace through everything. So a couple more comments we got on here. I'm seeing... and oh, sweet. Okay, so we actually did just drop the link of the BlackRock video in the comments. So please make sure you all take time to watch that video. It is a very, very shocking video. And it does tie into a lot of what we talk about because it kind of goes down to the root cause. Peace goes against natural order. If you look at nature, nothing is peaceful. That's also true, Ryan. Appreciate you jumping in here. I know you're busy with your family, so thank you for jumping in here, though. We miss you and look forward to seeing you next week. But yeah, I mean, nothing is peaceful, right? Especially in nature, it's predator versus prey. Most of the time, you don't see animals just kind of sticking to their territory. They become so territorial, they want more, and then they try to expand, and then it becomes, fighting in nature.
Yeah. So I guess when I ask my questions, I'm trying to make people sort of, I don't know, look at everyone's perspective, because from the USA's perspective, right, we're not calling for peace. Ukraine's not calling for peace. Russia's not calling for peace. So it seems like everybody has sort of an interest to keep this thing going. Right. I haven't heard peace talks from anybody. So when I say that, I understand that war generates money and this is about power. So when the media gets on there, and dominantly the left media is pushing more support for this war. So when they get on there and it's about, restoring democracy to Ukraine and protecting Ukraine, I don't see anything from the media either about peace talks. So is it about restoring peace and democracy, or is it just about war?
Right, and that's an interesting take as well. So, I mean, I have a couple comments here on TikTok as well. Humans who act like animals should be treated as such. Interesting take. I mean, we are more intellectual than animals, so it'd be nice if we could, be treated as such. It's about money. Of course it is. And then Abel comes in talking about BlackRock a little bit. So most, if not all, major businesses are owned by by the major group. So BlackRock, Apple, Tesla, places like that. And then BlackRock and Vanguard actually own majority in stocks like Amazon, Anheuser-Busch, CNN, Fox News.
Got to keep those shareholders happy.
Got to keep those shareholders happy. That's the only thing about going public is that's all that matters is the fact that you make money. That's the scary part about public, businesses going to public and putting out their stock, being able to invest into the businesses and stuff. So it's tough, because we were talking about this earlier. So like, what's the solution? How do you? Abel, he dropped it up in the link just a few minutes ago. If you check that out. But yeah, I mean, like, how do you stop this? Or how do you make the solution? Or how do you find the solution? Right. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. You could stop corporations from being able to buy into other corporate stocks, but then corporations are just going to continue to pay their executives massive amounts of money, who will then ultimately buy into those corporations, who are working for corporations to continue to make those decisions, right? So I don't know if there is a solution to it. Remove large concentrations of wealth is a comment. That's also a good point, right? We would love to be able to find a way to diversify the wealth and make sure that it's getting spread. Trickle-down economics is something I've referred to a lot of times, and it's just something that's not realistic nowadays, unfortunately. But true trickle-down economics would lead into better middle class, a better lifestyle for people as a whole. But that's not something that we see. So great conversation around the cluster bombs, but full circle. I think we both disagree with it, but it's happening anyways. So, ultimately, the war machine keeps turning.
Yeah, I have the same response every week. Where is the call for peace?
It's a call for peace. And isolate politics from money. I love that because we have talked about that many times on this show. Love that take. So next, moving forward, let's move on. What is the next one, if you don't mind helping me out here? That's right. We're going to talk about Democrats demand the GOP turn over info on indicted think tank leader Patient Zero of Biden probe. So, little conversation that we'll have here. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee are asking the GOP to turn over information detailing the interactions with Gail Luft, a recently charged think tank leader who called himself Patient Zero of the Biden family investigation. Luft was indicted Monday on numerous serious charges, including failing to register as a foreign agent when recruiting and paying an unnamed former high-ranking U.S. government official on behalf of China. Shocker. He is also accused of brokering illicit arm deals and violating Iran's sanctions by setting up meetings between Iranian officials and Chinese energy company to discuss oil deals. Luft has played a central role in oversight chair James Comer's investigation into the Biden family's business dealings, as well as a probe into whether President Biden, in connection with son Hunter Biden, accepted a bribe, an assertion both men have flatly denied. Although Mr. Luft has been on the run for months, you touted him as a potential witness and even prepared to interview him as part of your investigation as recently as Friday. You described Mr. Luft as a very credible witness about matters relating to the president's son financial dealings with Chinese companies, the two Democratic lawmakers wrote. So Democratic lawmakers are sitting here talking about Luft, yet, if he's doing these things to kind of, he's a whistleblower, right? Like that's right now he's whistleblowing out on the Biden family. If he did these dealings, it's because obviously that was part of the setup is one way that the James Comer is kind of shooting for this gentleman, Mr. Luft, but moving forward. So Comer has based much of his investigation into the Biden family on tips relayed from whistleblowers, but that includes unverified information the FBI was unable to corroborate. Comer earlier this month abandoned plans to hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress after the Bureau allowed the committee to review an FD 1023 form that memorialized the tip with a confidential source who relayed the bribery allegations he heard from someone else. And then Mr. Zalewski's statements are just one of many that debunk the corruption allegations against President Biden that were first leveled by Rudy Giuliani and have been reviewed by former President Trump's own Justice Department, Raskin wrote into Comer in June. So interesting takes here, interesting information that we get from this article from The Hill. It's hard because, yes, we are relying on whistleblowers right now. But at the same time, these whistleblowers have a lot of information and they may be on the run because their lives are at stake, regardless of what the left or right says. The left is going to continue to say, oh, he's just, he's a whistleblower, but he has this and this against him. How can we trust him? The right's going to say, oh, he might have those against him, but he was doing it to simply set up the Biden family and show that, they are corruptible. So I don't know which way this is going to fall, and the problem is, even when they present evidence, what's actually the truth? You can talk facts all day long. Yeah, this guy may have factually done business dealings, with China and Iran for oil. He might have actually been there when Biden was discussing these things. So, like, I don't know that there's a difference between like facts and truth, right? I don't know which one's going to fall under this, and I don't quite know. So, what is your take on this?
Well, there's been a lot of information out about this Biden family situation. A lot of Republicans saying they have recordings. Still haven't seen those recordings.
Still haven't seen those.
Heard those recordings. There's been whistleblowers. He said this, she said that. She saw this, she saw that. I don't know, man. I'm just ready to see actual documentation, actual audio. Enough of the pointing fingers and the speculation, and I'm ready to see the hard, cold facts.
Right. Well, and that's the problem. Again, like, facts can be skewed, right? People can use facts to their own advantage. Like I said, let's say this whistleblower is, let's just take this for example. This whistleblower was undercover showing the corruption of the Biden family. Did he, do things that were probably illegal? Technically, yes. But was he doing it to set up the Biden family? Could have been that way as well, right? So, like facts can be skewed to the truth. You know what I mean? Now, and this is all just for example. This isn't like, stone cold facts or truth there, but
which I think it is a known fact that Hunter Biden was involved with this Chinese energy company, correct? Wasn't he doing business with them?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, no, he was sitting on the board of a Ukrainian energy company.
Okay. So I'll say this. I think a lot of signs point to Hunter Biden using the Biden name for financial gain.
Right.
But you still have to prove that it ties into Joe Biden somehow, and prove that Joe Biden was either affiliated with all of this or even knew about it.
Right. That's the tough part, right? So being able to prove it, even beyond what a witness can testify to, because witnesses often are not listened to in the court of law. It mostly comes down to what you can put on paper and what you can prove. So, it's tough when you got witnesses, and that's the only thing you're kind of going off of with the whistleblowers. So if Comer wants to, ultimately indict the Biden family and
yeah, I mean, if somehow they can indict them and then have a trial, and if they have all this evidence and recordings and stuff, they can go through a trial. I mean, innocent until proven guilty.
That's the biggest thing. I want to see these recordings. I like, they've talked about them over and over. 15 with Hunter, 2 of them with Joe. About business dealings, and I think they said something along the lines of like blackmailing even. That's what we need to see. So until we see those or hear those recordings, how factual is it?
There are transactions. Didn't transactions get released from Hunter Biden receiving money from China?
We went over those. Yeah, there were transactions between the Biden family and people who worked for Chinese corporations through the CCP, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about this a while back, but yeah, so like, there it is. So the Hunter Biden business associates, others got 1.3 million from business associate linked to China. So it shows that the Biden family did a lot of dealings with China. We went over this, I think it was like 4 episodes ago. But they were like regular installment payments of anywhere between 50 to 350,000. So, being able to transfer all this. So here's just one
And
example.
this is why while Joe Biden was vice president.
Yeah, so Comer's timeline for the payments while Joe Biden was a vice president was Walker received a wire transfer of $179,000 from an account the committee continues to investigate. Walker transferred $59,900 to his personal, and then Walker wired $59,900 from his personal to Biden. This was all in 2015. Then you go to 2017, State Energy HK Limited, a Chinese energy company, wired $3 million to Robinson Walker LLC. The account had a balance of $159,000. Walker wired nearly $1.1 to European Energy Infrastructure Group in Abu Dhabi. Comer said the company is linked to James Giller, a business partner of Hunter Biden. Walker wires a combined $70,000 to an unnamed Biden. Walker wires $25,000 to Haley Biden. Walker wires a combined $500,000 to a Wasco. Walker wires first clearing to 100,000. I mean, yeah, it was nonstop wires to different kinds of committees, individuals, companies. It's wild how deep this goes and how hard it is to follow all the money. So yeah, they definitely were guilty of a lot of money transfers. I can say that much.
Yeah, and what they keep referring to is they found no connection with the president, which I will say, if you're going to take Biden down, you got to connect him somehow.
You're going to have to.
So if there are recordings, 2 recordings of him out there,
hear it.
Yeah.
Drop it as soon as possible. And then I love Abel's comment here. Speaking of corporation, it might be off topic, but how can Sheets drop the price of gas one day? Why not do it all the time? Well, they won't do it all the time because OPEC loves controlling that gas, and they know they can squeeze as much out of the consumers as possible. So good luck with that. If you ever go to Dubai, talk to all the all the big oil owners over there and talk to them about lowering the prices. It'd be kind of nice. But other than that, yeah, so we will see what happens with the whistleblowers and with the Biden family as we continue to go through, and if they ultimately get indicted for all of this, we will see. Just the other week, we went over Hunter Biden and him actually being, slapped on the wrist with the cocaine, or I think it was crack cocaine. Yeah, the drug charges and the gun charge. So, he's just having to go to a, basically like a recovery facility to be able to recover from all this, and he was able to avoid jail time through that. So gotta love that. Love it so much. Just because you're the president's son, you get away with murder essentially. So how's that whistleblower going? They're on the run constantly, as we can see right now. So great. Love it.
Yeah, we tell everybody to look into this story, look into the Biden family transactions from this China energy group, and basically come up with your own conclusion.
Yep, find your own truth, and as more information, as more facts drop, of course, we will stay on top of it, and we'll be the first ones to present it right to you. So this is a good time for a quick plug. Everybody out there who's watching right now, please make sure that you all are liking, following, sharing, and subscribing to every single one of our social medias. We would truly appreciate it. You can find us at The Fact Is on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, you all name it, right? We're on all the social medias we possibly can be, and what we're doing is we're out here just trying to spread information, trying to have open, honest discourse with you all, because ultimately what we do is for you, the people, and we are here as an independent media trying to make our way. And if you're really, really nice, please find yourself on Patreon and subscribe to us that way. Ultimately, if we can find ourselves flowing with supporters, we would love to grow this into the world's largest independent media. We would not be bought out, and we would continue to feed you all factual information to the best of our ability. That is what we want to do here, and we want to continue to make original content. And with that, we would need the support of you all, the people. So please try to make sure that you all do everything you can to help us out, spread awareness, and we will, I promise, we will continue to pay back all of you all with those contributions. So thank you so much. What about MySpace? Yeah, we're on MySpace too. Find us there. But all right, moving forward. What is your take on the Trump indictment? We're actually going to talk about that next. There we go. Look at that. Great timing. I love how you asked that question and it comes right up. So let's talk about that. So we're going to talk about Mar-a-Lago surveillance footage shows Trump aide moving boxes before the DOJ visit. So talk about that a little bit. So surveillance footage from former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort showed his personal aide, Walt Nauta, moving dozens of boxes in the days before, dozens of boxes in the days before Justice Department investigators visited the property of June 2022 to retrieve records. According to the newly unredacted portions of the FBI's request for this warrant to search the property, Nauta is set to appear in a federal court Thursday for an arraignment hearing when he is expected to plead not guilty to charges he conspired with Trump to retain sensitive government documents and lied to federal investigators in a voluntary interview. In two previous court hearings, Nauta was unable to enter a plea because he lacked a lawyer accredited in the state of Florida. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges last month. In his 3-page ruling, Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhart stopped short of granting requested from media organizations, including the Wall Street Journal, to unseal the entire affidavit. Reinhart, who signed off last year on the Justice Department's request to search Mar-a-Lago, agreed that additional portions of the search warrant affidavit should be unsealed. The judge said the Justice Department had agreed to some additional portions of the search warrant affidavit could be made public, but it asked for other parts to remain sealed to comply with the grand jury secrecy rules and to protect investigative sources and methods. Trump was charged last month in a 38-count indictment alleging he held on to sensitive military secrets he knew he shouldn't have retained, shared them with others, and directed his staff to help him evade authorities' efforts to get them back. On 5 of the counts, Trump was charged with working to retain and conceal the records with Nauta, who went to work at Mar-a-Lago Resort after working in the White House. In May of 2021, Trump directed employees to put boxes in the storage room that was near the liquor supply closet and linen room. In December, Nauta found some of the documents spilled onto the floor, including one with the classification markings, and sent a colleague photos of the mess, according to the indictment, which includes one of the photos. When investigators asked Nauta about the movement of the boxes, he told them, I don't know. I honestly just don't know, which prosecutors say was false. Prosecutors have alleged the security camera footage showed Nauta moving 64 boxes out of the storage room for Trump to examine and later returning only about 30 of them. So, yeah, buddy, that kind of sounds like you moved some boxes there. Shouldn't have lied in the court of law. In the new, if I was him, I would have just been like, well, I moved these boxes. I didn't know what kind of contents it had in it. I was just told to move them, but whatever. In the newly public portions of the search warrant affidavit, the FBI agent addressed a Trump lawyer referenced in the document as F. POTUS Counsel 1. The lawyer is identifiable as Evan Corcoran, who later became the subject of the closed-door court battle between federal prosecutors and Trump's legal team. A federal judge would go on to rule that Trump likely misled Corcoran about his retention of government records after leaving office, siding with prosecutors' arguments by bypassing attorney-client privilege claims raised by the former president. In the affidavit, the FBI agent wrote that Corcoran said he had been advised that records from the White House were kept in only one location in Mar-a-Lago, the storage room. The lawyer further stated that he was not advised that there were any records in any private office space or other location in Mar-a-Lago. The FBI agent wrote in the previously redacted portion of the affidavit. The indictment would later include photographs of boxes stored at Mar-a-Lago, including several kept in the ballroom and a bathroom with a chandelier. In the search of the warrant affidavit, the FBI agent addressed how a storage room door was in keeping with Mar-a-Lago's gilded motif. The door to the storage room was painted gold and had no other markings on it than the door to the storage room is located approximately midway up the wall and is reachable by several wooden stairs, the agent wrote in a previously redacted portion of the affidavit. So, interesting. I mean, this is pretty wild. Stu, I'm gonna let you go ahead, but I just gotta say that now Nauta is pretty screwed here.
All right. So I'm gonna hold the same standard that I do to the Bidens to Donald Trump.
Love it.
So it started with the FBI, I guess, emailing or reaching out to Trump representatives.
Yep.
Saying, we know you have classified documents.
Give them back.
Return them. And we have it documented that Trump and Trump's team or whoever declined. And then there was the raid, and they got all those documents. We've had Trump say many of times that they are declassified.
Right.
That he declassified them all. But now we have that recording, actual audio of Donald Trump saying, I think it was one of the Iran documents.
Yes.
It was one or two documents, and he was saying,
with the two women in there.
Right. That they are still classified. And he said if he was president, he could declassify them,
He would just make it go away.
He can no longer declassify them anymore. So we know he has some documents there that are still classified. So there's another strike against him. And now we have surveillance footage of one of his aides moving boxes around.
Right.
So, I mean, the proof is kind of in the pudding at this point. I mean, we probably will still see more stuff come out. But like I said before, we have a recording and we have actual video surveillance of them moving these documents. So,
in the court of law, that sounds to me like you're found guilty. You know, I mean, if you have actual recordings, actual footage, I mean, and he clearly did everything he could to withhold giving these documents back for as long as possible until they raided.
Yeah, I don't think moving boxes around is cooperation.
Not
unless
at all.
I'm missing something.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And again, I'm all for holding the Biden family and everybody else accountable for their actions as well. And this just goes to show it doesn't matter who gets up there, they're all corrupt. And that's the hardest part of this. So,
and that's what we're trying to do when we break these things down. Like we looked at with Biden, we have some transactions that company wired to the Bidens,
the Chinese energy company.
Yeah. That ties to Joe Biden. I mean, you can speculate and connect, but the connection to Joe Biden is still yet to be revealed.
Right.
It wouldn't surprise me if he's connected to it. Let that be clear. But you still have to have that evidence.
Yep.
And then here we have Trump. Up to this point, we've heard what he's had to say, and it's just been like, from his words. But now we actually have evidence.
Hard evidence.
Of recordings. Who knows? I don't even know. They might have more stuff on him.
Right.
But what's been released to the public, we have a recording and we have video surveillance of his aide moving around boxes of classified documents. So
the take on the Trump indictment is that he'll probably be found guilty. We don't know that for sure, of course, but that is potential. So Nauta is toast. He could have went with the U-Haul defense, but that ship has sailed. I'm throwing Trump under the bus if it was me. That'd be me saving my own skin. I mean, it's too late now.
It's harder to defend somebody when there's recordings and videos out there.
Exactly, and I remember during those recordings, he was kind of trying to indicate to one of the women to try to make that go away. Oh, forgive us for that. We got a couple puppers there barking, so forgive us for that one. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that. Let me just rephrase all that. So basically, let's start with this. It's hard to not find him guilty at this point, with all the evidence that is against him. And when he was talking to these two women, and he clearly indicated when he was talking to them, it felt to me that one of these individuals was still part of the government in some form, because it sounded like, he was trying to have one of them make it go away. He was trying to have one of them have the help with declassifying one of these documents, the Iran document that he was discussing. So, one of them must have had some sort of connection in there. I don't know which individual that may have been, but yeah. So, I mean, with the recordings, with the footage, see what happens.
Yeah, and I guess you can make the argument, too, with having classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and all the traffic that goes in through there. I mean, it is kind of I don't know what you would call it, but, a lot of information could get leaked.
Oh, yeah, no, there was no security in Mar-a-Lago. The opportunity for those documents to become jeopardized and fall into the wrong hands was very high, a very high likelihood. So, no, I agree with you there. Yeah, they could have easily been jeopardized and easily somebody gotten into those documents. So, and especially, again, with the amount of social networking that went on around the Mar-a-Lago estates, I could only imagine. So, Donald Trump is guilty of all charges, especially treason and high treason and terrorism. Oh, interesting take there on TikTok. I don't know how much of that is true, but, he definitely put us in a position to allow classified documents to be, again, jeopardized or, to be seen by those that he has interest with. And we know that he is backed by a lot of Saudi money. He is backed by a lot of Middle Eastern money. So, yeah, I mean, the potential for that is huge.
We have no idea who saw all these documents.
No, not a clue. And it could have been some very, very important people with other countries. So, Who knows? But we will keep you all up to date with that as well. We will do full circle and make sure that we cover anything with Donald Trump coming up with his indictment. So, moving forward, get on to the next one. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court. Inside the AP's investigation into the ethics practice of the Supreme Court justices. So let's look at this.
Let me play a video.
Yeah, go ahead and play a quick video. Let's do that, and then we'll go from there. Oh, don't worry, Biden too.
My name is Eric Tucker, and I am a reporter in the Associated Press's Washington Bureau. Late last year, my colleague and I set out to document what happens when Supreme Court justices travel to college, universities, and law schools to deliver lectures and appear at question and answer sessions. We were very interested to know what they said, who they met, and whether or not they may have profited during certain of those trips. There has been significant media attention in the last several months focused on one justice in particular, Clarence Thomas, and his relationship with a very wealthy benefactor in Texas named Harlan Crow. However, our story sought to take a very comprehensive look at all members of the court and the ecosystem of travel to public colleges and universities that host them. We submitted more than 100 public records requests to universities all across the country that over the last decade have hosted or sponsored events with justices. We similarly queried more than 100 private colleges, institutions, charities, and other nonprofits to ask them similar questions in hopes that they also would respond. And the result is the most comprehensive, thorough assessment of what happens when justices travel the country to appear at law schools and colleges. One particular aspect of our reporting that we think is especially interesting is we found that justices are able to advance their own financial interests during these trips by virtue of these colleges and universities purchasing very significant numbers of books that the justices themselves have written. Justices are permitted to collect royalties, and we have seen time and again, especially with one justice, Sonia Sotomayor, that colleges and universities buy up hundreds, if not thousands, of copies of books ahead of the justice's visit, thereby enabling the justice to profit from these visits. We have also noticed that although these visits and trips are marketed ostensibly as academic in nature, an opportunity for students to hear from the pillars of the profession, these events are also often accompanied by VIP receptions. And so we were able to obtain the guest list from these events, and we were able to see that these colleges and universities market these events, these special receptions and VIP events for well-heeled, well-connected.
All right, so let's go over some of the evidence. Pretty interesting thing. Yeah, gosh, it just feels like no matter where you're at in the government, you're corrupt. It's getting really scary, man. I mean, you can't trust nobody out there. It's getting very scary. All right, so real quick. Associated Press examination of the ethics practice of the Supreme Court relied on documents obtained from more than 100 public records requests to public colleges, universities, and other institutions that have hosted the justices over the past decade. Here's a look at how the reporting was done. So, to conduct its review, the AP surveyed local news stories and social media and obtained data from the SCOTUS Tracker, a website that logged justices' activities to develop a list of appearances over the past 10 years. In late 2022 and early this year, the AP submitted records requests to public institutions on the list, citing individual state statutes that require the disclosure of certain documents to the public. The requests sought a broad range of information, including details about any contracts or riders for the appearances, transportation to and from events, as well as the food and lodging, the recording policy for the event, and any gifts or her honorarium discussed or offered, including books. The AP separately queried more than 100 private colleges, universities, and charities that also hosted justices or organized events for them, requesting that they provide the same information that was asked of public institutions. Some confirmed basic details of the visits, but few provided substantive information. The AP cataloged and the travel and perks afforded to the justices. The AP also compiled a list of guests, including donors and politicians who were invited to private receptions with justices, and vetted them wherever possible against information in the federal court records, Federal Election Commission filings, online photo albums, or events and other publicly available data. The response among public institutions varied widely. Some schools, including the University of Rhode Island, Ohio State University, Stony Brook University, the University of California, Davis, provided records free of charge. Some schools turned over thousands of pages of records, including George Mason University and the University of Kentucky. McLean Community College in Waco, Texas, produced 104 pages of records in March, and then following a $110 payment, shipped a mail of box of blue folders containing hundreds more pages. A reporting trip was also taken there so the journalists could observe firsthand the site of a dinner that the college organized for Justice Clarence Thomas. Some institutions were less forthcoming. The AP went to the Illinois State Attorney General to get a binding opinion directing the Chicago Public Library to produce documents related to a visit of Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Other schools, including the University of Arizona, had said their search for records remained ongoing after more than 6 months. Goodness, wouldn't think it would take that long for somebody who's organized. The AP did say some schools for documents, including $350 to the University of Utah, $140 to Michigan State University, $159 to Minnesota, roughly $150 to Mississippi. But some schools responded to records requests with fee demands that the AP deemed unreasonable. The initial fee cited by the University of Georgia for processing 2 requests was $18,800.50, though it was later reduced after AP narrowed its request. So seems like some schools were more willing, some schools were a little more reluctant to give over that kind of information, but it looks like, again, it doesn't matter what part of the government you're part of, it seems like you are corruptible, and through money, through gifts, whatever that may be, that's something that is concerning. So, Stu, your take on that? I know.
Sheesh.
I know it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to talk about this anymore. I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what part of the government you're in. You are corruptible.
Yeah. They get elected or appointed, and they use their position to further themselves financially.
Yep.
I don't know. It's discouraging to see that this is in pretty much every aspect of our government, whether
Yeah.
you're a Trump, a Biden, or on the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Doesn't matter whether you're. Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't matter. Regardless of which part of the government you're part of, judiciary, executive, or I'm blanking right now, legislative. It doesn't matter. You are corruptible, and money will always be the driving factor. I don't know if I can how much I can stress like how serious it was that this whole BlackRock video dropped earlier through OMG. I mean, seriously, that just it continues to bring me back to that video. It continues to show that everybody can be bought out, and it doesn't matter. So it's very discouraging, as you said earlier, to see that happening, and we can only hope that things continue to get better. Well, we can't really hope. We have to set action to it. We have to put forth effort to ensure that these things start getting changed. And the only way that's going to happen is by the rotating social workers of the new generations going in while the old generations are clocking out. So that's the only way I see this becoming better, and for things to actually have some sort of resolution and solution to it. So that's my take.
Yeah. So we had Justice Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
which it
Clarence
mentioned.
Thomas, yeah.
Yeah, it mentioned him that he was taking bribes from a billionaire,
Yep.
and then the other one,
I just said her name, and I Sodomy, something of that nature.
yeah, she was like having book
signings, things of that
and stuff.
nature. A lot of the proceeds, were getting donated to her, and I mean, again, it's very scary because these are individuals who are supposed to uphold the Constitution. Well, what's the price? What's the value? The price tag to be able to stop upholding the Constitution. What's the price tag that the law of the land starts getting changed? That's where it starts becoming even more terrifying. So those are the things that we need to continue to fight against. Like I said, and as some clock out and others clock in, hopefully they will stay vigilant and stay on the mission of keeping it transparent and faithful within our system. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they're, like I said earlier, they're taking their government position and benefiting it off financially.
And I can't express that enough, Ryan. The boomers have failed as a generation. They screwed us. They put the millennials in the absolute worst financial situation in history. We are just destroyed by this boomer population. Now, a lot of people can argue as to why. They've seen war. They've seen World War I. I mean, well, hell, we've seen war too. Our generation's seen plenty of war. We've been in and out of wars. World War II, I'd imagine, was a very scary time, especially with nuclear bombs getting dropped. And hindsight 2020, but like you said, they inherited a country that was prospering and turned us into a debt-ridden crapshoot fueled by greed, and that's 100%. And that's, it's hard because I would like to be able to see it from their perspective, but being that I'm seeing the aftermath of it all and the hindsight 2020 of what they did, it's hard for me to say, to really be, what's the word I'm looking for, I guess, understanding of what they were going through, or to put myself in their perspective.
Yeah, it's frustrating looking at all these areas of government, and they're supposed to be a public servant and they're supposed to serve the people, but every week, we have a story. It looks like our public servants are serving themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm almost to the point where it's just like let's just put term limits on every single thing. You know, senators, you can only have 2 6-year terms, and Supreme Court justices, you're not in there for life. You have a term. I'm just putting terms on everything at this point, and just
Right.
every decade or so, you know, new people come in.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just tired of seeing this stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying that'll fix the problem, but
I think it would help.
at
I
least
think it would
you
help
get-
drastically.
at least you get some of these people out.
Well, and like Ryan just said here, right? So inflation is ridiculous, debt is ridiculous, and they won't give up their seat at the table and go enjoy their grandkids. That's part of it, right? They will not give up their seat at the table. When you look at somebody like Biden, who's been a career politician, been in for 40 plus years, you know, dude, it's time to go. Like, retire. Him, Trump, everybody else, I mean, they're all above the age of 75. Retire. Please go enjoy your life. Go enjoy it with your grandkids. Try to play as much golf as you possibly can before your body won't allow you to anymore.
There's a story out now where Biden doesn't even acknowledge his 7th grandkid.
What?
Yeah, he has a 7th granddaughter. Hunter had it. I think she was a stripper, something along those lines. And I think the in-laws are raising her at this point.
Holy
But yeah,
crap.
From what I understand, Joe Biden doesn't even acknowledge that that's his granddaughter.
That's absolutely wild. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that, right? With the Supreme Court justices, I mean, trying to bring it full circle. You know, like I said, it doesn't really matter where we're at with this, but Biden doesn't know who Jill is at this point. That man needs to be in a retirement home. Let's be real. I mean, he really does. He needs to enjoy the rest of his life just with his family, or, you know, whatever. But yeah, we got to figure that out. So let's get on to our last topic. This one is it's like heartwarming, especially for individuals like me, you, and Ryan, who are trying to build what we're trying to build. But it is also very concerning at the same time, right? So, like I said, it's heartwarming and concerning all at the same time. So, historically low faith in U.S. institutions continues. So, Americans' faith in major societal institutions hasn't improved over the past year following a slump in public confidence in 2022. Last year, Gallup recorded significant declines in public confidence in 11 of the 16 institutions it tracks annually, with the presidency and the Supreme Court suffering the most. The share of Americans expressing a great deal of fair amount of confidence in these fell 15 and 11 percentage points respectively. Neither score recovered appreciably in the latest poll, with confidence in the court now at 27% and the presidency at 26%. However, the survey was conducted June 1st through 22nd of 2023, before the Supreme Court issued decisions affecting affirmative action, all the stuff that we talked about last week. Public confidence in each of the 14 institutions remains near last year's relatively low level, with none of the scores worsening or improving meaningfully. So here's this. We're just going to go over the June 1st through the 22nd, 2023. So small businesses is what has the most, is what there's a fair amount of confidence in those institutions. The military is next, which is interesting. The police, the medical system, the church and organized religion, Supreme Court, banks, public schools, presidency, large technology companies, organized labor, newspapers, criminal justice system, television, news, big business, and Congress. So I love how Congress is at 8%. That's ridiculous. So you all see the percentages there. I'm not going to sit there and continue to discuss those percentages, because that's basically what it does is, summarizes it there afterward. Many institutions at or near rock bottom. So looking at some of those, 2023 confidence in institution ratings compared with all-time lows. So, you can see the all-time lows, the third column over, which is pretty wild. And it tells you the year that they were so low. A lot of these institutions are 2022 and 2023, and this is wild. So, looking at military and small business, those were the only ones in the 90s. Organized labor, 2009 was their all-time low. They're 25%. Banks, medical system, all of these. Just looking at the chart here again, I'm not going to have to go through it all again, but I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 11, 12. 12 were within the past year at an all-time low, and only 5 of them were, not within the past year. That being military, small business, organized labor, banks, and the medical system. So seeing how these are getting at an all-time low, again, the small business is something exciting, right? It's something that we're trying to build. We want to build into a media organization that is, starting at a small business. And then eventually these small businesses become large businesses. And then big business then starts becoming trusted again, right? And that's hopefully the idea. But we'll continue to see what the trend has from there. So average confidence in major U.S. institutions, the figures that are the average percentage of U.S. adults who have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in 9 institutions measured consistently by Gallup. So as you see, it went from all the way from 1979 to 2003 or 23, and 2023 is the all-time lowest. So some institutions are more polarizing than others. 7 of the institutions measured this year earned sharply higher confidence ratings from one major party group than the other. The widest partisan differences are seen for the presidency, which is 39 points. Public schools are 34, about which Democrats are much more positive than Republicans. Democrats also express substantially more confidence than Republicans in organized labor and newspapers. Republicans have significantly more confidence than Democrats when it comes to the Supreme Court, church and organized religion, and the police. Independents' confidence is more similar to Democrats than Republicans when it comes to religion and the police, while it falls halfway between the two groups of the polarizing institutions. And there you can see a part of that chart. So, bottom line, Americans' confidence in institutions in 2023 represents the continuation of the historic confidence deficit record a year ago. None of the 15 institutions rated annually managed to repair their images, with many remaining at or near their all-time lows, while hardly encouraging the good news is none worsened significantly. So, gotta love it. Would you say it's a dual-edged sword? Of course it's a dual-edged sword. It's scary that we have that much faith in the military, given what's going on in Ukraine. Military-industrial complex just continues to, that's what I was kind of thinking, continues to stay up. And also...
Yeah, but I guess Congress and presidents are the one controlling the military. The military is just taking orders.
Isn't that interesting? So we have no faith in Congress or our president, but we'll trust our military. Somebody explain that to me, because it does not make sense. Also, the faith in the military is scary with all the news coming out about the aliens. Do see a lot of news about aliens, though. I ain't even gonna lie.
There's trust in the military because there's family members in the military, and same with police. Like, people have family members in the military and stuff. So that's why there's more faith in those institutions.
Maybe, but then you see a lot of people get out of the military because they don't like, what they're serving for. So, I see what you're saying, and they may just be like, oh, I'm looking up to my, family member because they're in the military or the police or something of that nature. Now, police makes sense. We do have a lot of faith in our police, because they're the ones out there serving us every single day. They and I can't, say the same thing about the military, of course, but we don't have any direct threats to our land right at this moment. That's the only thing with the military. So I feel like we should be kind of more involved with, staying out of situations like Ukraine and Russia, bringing back our resources here in America and helping us out. When you look at Detroit and some of these places, we're starting to look like a third world country in these inner cities. And it's getting absolutely frustrating to see the infrastructure fall apart when we live in America. We should be supporting our own country. I do believe in, and here's the thing. I'm not saying that we can't help internationally, right? I do believe in helping internationally, but I believe in helping places that have like little to no infrastructure at all. Like, you look at places in Africa, you look at places like in India, especially, where they have, not even clean water. They have to go get it every single day from a local water source. They probably have to boil it and try to make sure that it's sanitized or purified in their own way. They don't have the infrastructure. I believe in helping, countries of that nature, but not to the point where we're just involved in wars. We need to be helping we need to be helping our own country where we're falling apart, and then we also need to be helping those who have very, very little. Yeah, sounds like Flint, Michigan, right? They could use a lot of help as well. And China did fly a balloon over the U.S. this past year. That's something that people continue to forget about. And the crazy part is that it only happened not too long ago, when China was over here kind of watching our country and things like that. And that's what I'm saying.
They claim there was no surveillance.
It's what they say, but at the same time, it's wild that we allowed some sort of Chinese military to get into the U.S. that easily. So that's another reason I feel like we need to pull back our military, stop spending so much in the military-industrial complex, and start ramping up all that money, all the money we sent to Ukraine, all of this that we're putting out towards international things. Start bringing it back into our borders, and we can see a huge influx in I'm sure technology, health and safety, the infrastructure around here in the U.S. I mean, it would be beautiful.
Investing in the American people, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. Gosh, that'd be nice if that happened. If aliens come, that our whole world's screwed. I don't think it's just U.S. Our whole world's screwed. But here's the problem: is there is going to become a point where the world needs to kind of pull together and put its resources together, especially if we're on existential threats, like a lot of things have claimed that we're heading towards. So, until we actually start working together, I just, that's a long shot.
So how far is the Supreme Court going to fall? Because it said this came out before all those rulings, and the article we just covered last block, after all that information comes out, how far do you think the Supreme Court's going to fall?
Supreme Court's going to fall, and they're going to fall pretty hard too. I don't think a lot of people are going to have trust in the Supreme Court. I think it's going to go down closer towards what newspapers and things of that nature are at.
I can't believe banks are that high after they make all their terrible investments and then just get bailed out every time.
Oh, I know. And then you look at places like Wells Fargo, who a lot of their information gets stolen all the time and things of that nature. I mean, it is only 25%, or 26%. So it's not huge, but it is bigger than, what you'd expect. There's a lot of things on there that I'm shocked. Church and organized religion, I guess I can understand because it's more of a faith-based thing. But then you also look at how they take advantage of the tax systems and, what they do there. Pretty scary. The bailouts is why we have faith in the banks. I guess, yeah, that's a good point too. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just the having that much faith in a lot of those things is scary. Public schools, I'm shocked that's not a little bit lower. Large technology companies, I'm really shocked at that one. 26%. You think that would be down at 10%, but we'll see. Television news, I'm glad to see it down where it is, because
Yeah, it says newspapers and television news basically are media.
Yeah,
and there's no trust in that.
Not at all.
Big business and Congress, they're at the very bottom.
That just doesn't shock me though anymore. I mean, I have zero faith in them as well. So.
As do I.
Yeah. So that's what it is. Historical low faiths in U.S. institutions. It continues. It's probably only going to get worse as well. So, whew, what an episode. That's a lot of information to take in, isn't it?
Are people going to hold our government accountable, hold our businesses accountable, hold our media accountable? And there seems to be low faith. What are we going to do about it?
It's up for the people to decide, unfortunately. And until the people, and I was talking to a couple of coworkers about this a little bit earlier. It's when we live in a world where convenience is at an all-time high, it's hard to convince somebody that they're being fooled. It's hard to convince them that their convenience is sacrificing their freedom. And I don't know that we're going to be able to step up as a people and be able to overcome this unless we start actually paying attention and actually caring. Again, this BlackRock video is a huge, huge milestone in my opinion. a guy has literally now admitted that politicians are bought out, and people are like, oh, this is, we've known this. Yeah, but like, this is somebody who's working for one of the two largest corporations in the entire world, admitting that BlackRock will pay off politicians, pay off anybody they need to, and that they enjoy war, they enjoy the chaos, and that people are stupid enough to not care about this. Okay, it's literally out there now. A person who worked for BlackRock said this. If this doesn't wake people, I really don't know what will. I mean, it's in plain sight. It's right in front of you. What more does anybody have to do?
Well, it's not being talked about at the major news outlets.
No, of course it's not going to be talked about. That's why, as Ryan just said, because people should be getting their news from us. The fact is, because we promote those kinds of things. The independent media talks about this. I'd be shocked if Crystal and Sagar don't put this on blast, or Joe Rogan. These are the individuals that need to put this stuff on blast. We're not big enough to be able to cover that kind of coverage quite yet. But hopefully these other small medias, or I say small, hopefully these other medias do talk about it. So, yeah, I agree. I think Rogan will. I think he definitely will. I think has he had James O'Keefe on there yet? He hasn't had James on there yet. Has he? I haven't seen that episode or heard that one. I need to listen to that. Yeah, I did see the whole Tucker Andrew Tate thing. It kind of seemed like he gave him an easy pass there. Yeah, it just kind of felt like he didn't really ask him the hard questions that he needed to. But interesting thoughts there. So, let's go ahead and end this episode. This was a long episode. This is almost hour and a half. We got through a lot. So,
can I say something before we end?
Oh, of course.
I want to challenge everybody out there to, I say this every week, to hold not just your government accountable, but your local governments.
Yes, that's the big thing.
Get involved with your local governments, because I believe that's where the change starts.
In the roots.
I mean, everybody is concerned with the presidency, but your local institutions have most control over your life. So if you start there and getting involved, and I know life's crazy and life's busy, but you need to get involved and know what's going on in your local communities.
I agree with that. And again, it's going to be changing it at the local level that is ultimately going to be what trickles it up towards our federal side, right? So when things start changing locally, you'll start to see it change on a larger scale. I'm a big believer in that. So continue to focus on your local elections, and just keep it small. Stop worrying about these big things, because that's not what we can control right now. What we can control are these local elections.
Yeah, and people get so outraged. They can be on the East Coast and they get outraged what's happening out on the West Coast, which I understand, but you really need to focus on what's happening in your backyard first.
And where you're living. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Because, little do you know, that West Coast state that you're so frustrated about could be happening right here in your East Coast state that or wherever you live, right? If you're not a big fan of California, maybe an elected official who is just like one over in California is now starting to take over your state, and you're not even realizing it.
Yeah, and then the other issue is too, if somebody sees something happening somewhere in the country, they just say, "Oh, well, it's happening everywhere," and that's not necessarily true
not
either.
Even close to true, no. So you just pay attention to your local stuff. Please make sure you're paying attention to that. So let's go ahead and, like I said, we'll start logging off here. Want to real quick say thank you to all military personnel, active duty and retired, law enforcement, fire and rescue, doctors, nurses, paramedics, hospital staff, farmers. Thank you so much for feeding us. Love food. God, I love food. Those in American manufacturing, those in social work, taking care of the U.S. citizens right here in the U.S., and last but not least, ethical congressional representatives. Emphasis on the ethical. This was the 131st episode of The Fact Is. Ryan, we look forward to having you back next week. Like I said, with everything been going on there, we've missed you. We've missed you a lot, but we also understand that, some things take precedence. So really appreciate you and Stu and for everything you guys do for this podcast and helping us drive forward. We've got a lot of big things coming, and we continue to push for freedom, and that is what we do here, because ultimately we do this podcast for you all, not for us. And don't forget, make sure you're sharing this podcast with not only those that you love, but those that you disagree with, because ultimately we all here at The Fact Is believe that we all have more in common than what we don't. And for us to be able to continue to fight back against the corruption, we need to be able to come together as a whole. So, like I said, this was the 131st episode of The Fact Is podcast. We were your hosts, Nath Moses.
And I'm Stu Mowbray.
And we will see you all next week for the 132nd episode of The Fact Is. See y'all then.